found this cool video on the internet, thanks to Ericu, about this guy called Dewill or something. He made this video that says how bad are low tours in MVM. MVM statistics. There's some really in-depth statistics. Wanna check it out together? Yeah. I mean, even if you don't want to do it, I'll do it anyway. Oh, it's 44p, 1440p too. Wow.
In MVM, low tours perform objectively worse than the high tours. It's a simple line with a simple logic, yet brings so much fire to the community. I'm not joking. Try say something that implies that new players' performances are poor.
I mean, it's kind of given, right? They don't know what they're doing, so I don't know why this video even exists.
Suddenly, a bunch of angry people would show up and try to burn you alive, saying that you're supporting the Takaba.
How doesn't even make sense to like say that.
The fact
so
that
I guess it checks out random
players
people
felt with their skin, including me, the man who burned $3K and over 2.5K hours on MVM. New players in MVM, so-called low tours, not all of them, but are bad. Disclaimer. Of course, this doesn't mean that hatred against the entire low tours is justifiable. Put down your "burn him alive, he's the Takaba" card and stay reasonable with me through the rest of the video. Anyway, that brings
us shot every time you mention Takaba.
Much. How many new players are performing poorly? What classes they are prepared to choose? How much percentage do they take up in the entire player base of MVM? The answer is, we don't know. We can try to make arbitrary numbers by speculation based on our experience. But a man's memory isn't perfect, and everyone's definition of being bad is different. It's impossible to get an actual number unless someone sets a firm universal bar and collects a reasonable amount of data under it. But who would do that? Recording hundreds of games and tracking each man's performance in the server for hundreds of hours? Who would be crazy enough to do that? I did it. 100 games of 2 cities MVM.
100 games of 2 cities MVM. That means like 25 tours worth, which is not really that much.
One gigantic statistic.
I guess.
I had to set quite a few ground rules before starting to collect the data. 1. What types of people I record? I opted to record randos only, excluding party members or stream snipers. Yeah, cause I stream myself playing MVM a lot, so. If I include them, they repeatedly show up in the chart, which can dilute the accuracy of the statistics. Yep, this is a server filled with
server filled with stream snipers. I don't know what fucking region he's in, but it feels kind of weird.
Stream sniper, like
that every single one of these would be just a stream sniper.
Every time.
Sydney.
Additionally, I will try to let others pick the class first and stay on the server without leaving as much as possible. 2. What format I'll use to track others' performance? Looks easy, right? Scribble down what class they picked, then their performance with it under it. But in practice, no. See, people can switch classes between each raid. Then why not write down every class they played? Well, again, no. Picture a man playing decent with the soldier he chose. But what if he suddenly switched to spy and keeps on dying? Should I call him a good player because he was good at soldier, or an awful player because he's through as a spy? Then write down every class they played in a game and the performance with each class under it. It'll finally solve the problem, right? Unfortunately, no, thrice. Because players' performance can change mid-game. For example, Pyro, playing horribly without throwing a gas passer, could have forgotten to equip it, and he can turn out to be a decent player after noticing his error.
Noticing his error. I don't know if this is a joke or if it's like he's legit about this, but yeah, I guess equipping an overpowered weapon would make a player better at the game than having a fucking flare gun.
So, considering all these possible scenarios, I came up with this format. For each wave, writing down the class they picked on top and their performance with it under it, for each teammate I meet. 3. How I'll determine whether they are good or bad. This one is the trickiest part because there is no solid definition of bad in MVM. So, I thought I'd better take the inverse definition of good in MVM. Good MVM players are like this. They use well-suited loadout for MVM, know what to upgrade, have a good idea of the job of their classes, and execute it nicely. So, these three are the main things that judge whether they are good or bad in MVM. But consider that even with a good loadout and upgrade, their performance can be awful and vice versa. So,
let's find out.
I came up with this scoring system. Loadouts are not a big deal, so I assigned a low amount of score to it. Unless they're using horrible weapons like Gunslinger and Huntsman, I'll score them over 10.
I mean, Huntsman's not really horrible. It's kind of decent in my opinion, but...
Yes, Huntsman is horrible, shut up. And upgrades.
Oh, you shut up!
I assigned just 25 to this, cause people can play like a complete ass even with good upgrades.
Yeah, but they can play like even more of an ass with bad upgrades.
But how can I say
that? If they're good players.
Yeah, it's been over a year since they removed the teammate inspecting in MVM. Rebirth, goddammit! Anyway, not a big deal cause it's pretty much easy to spot whether they upgraded correctly or not. Resistance upgrades, Medic's Shield, Scout's Mad Milk Slow, good upgrades affect the game a lot, therefore easy to spot what they're missing. Anyway, as long as they upgrade those crucial upgrades, I'll give them a good score on this.
I don't know about calling slow milk crucial upgrades, but...
With the performance part, I opted to be extra generous about it. Even high trolls like me sometimes make mistakes, so asking for picture-perfect gameplay for random players will be nonsensical. Though I'll ignore minor errors, such as missing lesser than 10 credits as a scout or accidentally popping Uber medics 1 or 2 times. I'll give them a low score on this only if they are unbearably bad and not even trying to improve. To sum it up, it'll be like this. Good. Knows what to do and execute the job decently. So-so. Knows what to do roughly, executes the job, but somewhat poorly. Bad. Knows nearly nothing, executes the job poorly or not even trying it. Of course, I can't give everyone a precise score because I am not a computer, but setting a good criterion like this will be convenient for the recording. Let me give you an example to make you experience how this system works.
I guess it also applies only to his region of servers, which is like Asia and like Australia region, I guess. I don't know how many times he ends up in like US servers or some shit like that, but I've never seen him in a game, so no idea.
Get the money up on the cliff, please.
Really tragic.
But we're not done yet. Go now. Head to an upgrade.
Like how his HUD's fucked too.
Let's score this man. Scout's loadout was Force of Nature, Mad Milk, and Bat. Force of Nature is one of the worst primary option per Scout due to its knockback, and the lack of Fenor is a bummer. But he at least equipped the most crucial one, the Mad Milk, so I'll give him 8 out of 15.
I don't know. Fan kinda...
He did upgrade Mad Milk Slow, but hasn't bought Jump Height or Cantons. It's sad, but to be honest, Mad Milk Slow is more than enough. 15 out of 25.
Just having Mad Milk Slow for an upgrade gives you like 15 points.
Scout's 2 main jobs are collecting the money, and with Mad Milk, giving health support to teammates and slowing down the robots.
Now there's like the difference where you should apply different judging, right? Like if you have a low tool that doesn't really know what to do in the game, like act and aggro management and all that shit, that's fine, okay? That's fine. That's the baseline. Collecting money, throwing milk, fair. Absolutely fair. But as soon as you go higher up the scale, the conditions on what you rate the performance should most definitely change.
He knew that he should collect the money, but his performance on that was poor. If I wasn't a sniper, he could lost much more than 25. Also, he threw Mad Milk on robots, but not to the ones that he needed to, Super Scouts. His overall performance is quite awful, without a doubt, but at least he had the basic idea of his role. 20 out of 60. In sum, 43 out of 100, so-so, just bad.
So even like a bad scout missing like some money, some milk throws, and like having weird upgrades still lands you in like the midsection, which is a fair rating, I guess, for beginners, because they don't know everything, but they aren't just complete fucking brainlets. They can perform reasonably well for the bar he set anyway.
Barely.
I mean, I wouldn't expect a low tour scout to just dish out like 60k or something, unless they're resellers or some shit like that. So, yeah.
Alright,
Fair
I
enough.
think I will demonstrate how this system operates. Now,
But the problem with like how he applies what's good or bad is that he never explains it for the other classes, you know. So we don't know what his rating for good is for soldier, for instance. Does he have to buy rocket specialist or something like that? Does the demo have to be like in the best perfect positions or whatever? Does he have to spam canteens when there's Uber medics coming? We don't know what he based those ratings on.
finally, I can jump into recording 100 games of 2 cities MVM. Why only Operation 2 cities? Mainly because it's my most played one, so I was sure I would be able to analyze teammates on the go
There's a
without a
limit to
problem.
how awesome
But
of
not
an
only that,
player you can
2 cities
be.
has the
Scale
most
goes to
active players.
thousands,
So,
millions.
more players, more samples. Easy logic. Anyway, after countless streams, countless hours, and an immeasurable amount of pain, I finished the task. It took me more than 3 months. And finally, after playing with some spreadsheet functions, the chart is ready. Now it's time to show you what the results were. So, brace your neurons, cause there will be a lot of
Prime
numbers.
time.
Behold the statistics chart! If you can't see what's happening, it's normal, no worries. Nobody can process this many raw numbers with a single glance. So
I never really looked at this chart that closely. Amount of players who played that class, second amount of waves they played with that class. Low tour players, 0 to 9. Yeah, that's his rating. Low tours for 0 to 9. I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that on 2 cities, because the like tours just spread way much higher. Like ranking high tour players 100 plus is kinda, I guess it's fair, but I would have ranked it probably higher than that. Mid tour, I would probably start at like 50, not 10. Like anyone can get like 10 tours. I wouldn't call them like better than 9 tour that. So we had soldiers. Aimbots, snipers 2. Good 2. So 1. Aimbots excluded. Aimbots excluded. Heavy. What the hell does that mean? Heavy 2. Good so. Huh. Spotted tour results. How do you know who's an alt or a pure? I mean, probably by tour count or end performance, or just checking profiles, maybe.
for both your and myself's sake, I'll use graph visualizations for interesting points I spotted in this. There's one thing I needed to explain before jumping in though. I divided the players into 3 groups: low tours, mid tours, and high tours. Low tours are the players has 1-digit tour count, averaging 10 hours of MVM experience. Mid tours are 2-digit players, averaging 100 hours of experience. And high tours are 3+ digit players, averaging large hours of experience. This grouping will help us to spot correlations between skill level and the other factors. And to make the statistics more accurate, I excluded records of 4 cheaters I met.
I don't really know how you would determine playtime hours in MVM. Is there a stat for that?
Also, I moved 2 1-tour players who turned out to be resetters having 1000+ tour count to the high tours group. If you don't know what resetter means, you can reset your tour count by deleting the tour completion badge. We call those who did that as resetters. Yes, I explained everything now, so here goes nothing. You're now looking at a graph representing the population of each tour count group. And here's another one. Wonder why there are two? Because I recorded teammates and how many waves they played separately. So, to get a correct graph, we need to take an average of those two. And here is it. Not so surprisingly, low tours took up about 48%. 210 out of 441 total players played 1,152 waves out of 2,412. Even though the range of the tour count increased 9 times than the low tours, mid tours scored a lesser percentage, about 39%, with 171 players, 945 waves played. High tours were even lesser than mid tours, but still regularly showed up, about 13%, with 60 players and 315 waves played in total.
I mean, it only makes sense, right? To get the higher number, you need to play more, and not a lot of people invest that much money and time into that game mode. They just want to try it and maybe get a chance at the fucking Australian. So obviously the lower tours would be more sizable in numbers, and the higher you go with numbers, the lower it gets.
And
So
this got me
not a
thinking,
surprise here.
what if I compare it to the Operation 2 City Badges level distribution data? As soon as you finish your first mission of any operation in MVM, not the whole tour, you'll get rewarded with a level 1 badge for that operation. That level 1 means that you're currently playing your first tour of the operation. Now, this is the level distribution data of the 2 cities badges. You can search that in backpack.tf. We can see it roughly follows the inverse proportion pattern. Unfortunately, backpack.tf doesn't let us see the count of badges past 25 levels, so we need some
Exactly,
improvisation
like,
for the comparison.
That data
They
just
give us
banned.
the number of all existing badges and the numbers of badges per 1 to 9 tour count. That means at least it's possible to compare the low tours population to the mid to high tours combined. So let's make the comparison. Here's the one based on my data, and this is the one based on backpack.tf data. That's a massive discrepancy. I think the only explanation for this is this. People with higher tour count place more games than their lower counterpart.
I mean, that's a great analysis right here. You know, people that play the game more have more tools, basically. So glad we figured that out.
The average waves played for each group were nearly the same. I'll call it AWP from now on. Anyway, we can spot that high tours scored a bit less AWP than the other two groups. I got curious, so I collected the games people left with their choice and did some statistics with them. There were 6 leavers in low tours, 8 in mid tours, and 4 in high tours. On a percentage basis, the chances of low tours leaving mid-game is 2.86%, mid tours is 4.68%, and high tours is 6.67%. Does this mean that the higher the tour count is, the higher they tend to leave mid-game? I don't think so. The sample size seems too small. If I had the same result with hundreds of samples, I would have agreed with it. But with 6, 8, and 4? I don't think it's anywhere near meaningful. So, let's give hypothesis further research required stamp and
Yeah, I don't know. There's like, I would say, different reasonings, but the split would probably be pretty even, right? I mean, the low tours, they just quit for whatever reason, money lost, and they're out of there, or some fucking shit gets exploded and doesn't go their way, they're just out of there. Somebody else leaves, they're just out of there. And then you have the high tours who see a Pyro and say just fuck this shit, and they're out of there. They see a bunch of low tours, they're out of there. They see the wave 1 sign and they're out of there because it's not a wave 6, and they want fucking fast, easy game snipes, you know? So I would say it's pretty average. Just the reasons are different
move on.
for each of
Oh,
them.
and if I happen to do more research on this, recording people leaving pre-game might bring some interesting results. Anyway, that's a story for later. Let's move on to the next topic. The same logic applies here. I'll take an average of player count graph and a number of waves played graph. Now, let's start up with the scout. Scout's ping rate increased as player skill level grew. I think it's mainly because the concept of money collecting is foreign and nervous to try out for new players. But the scout's supporting abilities are too significant to ignore, so it feels natural to see the ping rate growing with the understanding level of the MVM.
Okay, I don't know if he's serious with this, but I don't think that higher tour players pick Scout more frequently because they know how to pick up the money, I think it's fair enough to assume that the low tours don't pick scout because they're more freaked out about like losing money, even though it's not really that big of a deal, even if they lose like 100. And then I just think that higher tours tend to be more knowledgeable about how to play scout to begin with, so they can perform better and do more things like universally. And that's why they pick scout over like a low tour who contributes basically nothing beyond just getting the money and throwing the milk and fanning giants continuously.
Soldier was one of the most beloved DPS class regardless of the skill level, due to his straightforward playstyle, versatility, and high peak performance. But new players showed the tendency to lean toward other options, still a high rate though.
It's fair. Soldiers is pretty easy to like get into. You on a safe distance, you can still do decent damage, right? And there's not really like much you need to watch out for in terms of grabbing money and shit like that. You know, like actual jobs you have to perform, maybe beyond sniping snipers and then dealing with spies here and there.
Pyro showed the opposite result of scouts. As players' skill levels grew, the ping rate of the Pyro decreased significantly. You might be surprised, cause many say that the Pyro is the best generalist class. Pyro can collect money, dish out close range damage, do AoE burst damage with gas, and melt a tank. But in reality, yes, Pyro may be the jack of all trades, however, never the ace. Scout is better at collecting money, Heavy is better at close range damage, Demoman and Sniper are better at AoE burst damage, and the Soldier is much more reliable generalist class. So, unless you're playing without teammates, Pyro's lack of specialty becomes a downside in most cases. Therefore, it's natural to see that the ping rate of the Pyro decreases while the skill level increases. Because for skilled players, Pyro serves no purpose but a tank buster.
A bit of a stretch there, but the graph checks out. Like a lot of the new players would just flock to it because it's easy to perform well thanks to the gas passer, you know. And then the higher you go with tools, the more people hate it because of the gas passer, because of the air blasting, and because it's more annoying to play as Pyro, more difficult to play as Pyro as well. And a lot of high tools just want easy and fast games, so the go-to classes are usually Devilman and Soldier or Sniper. Some do heavy and engineer, but most of the time they just leave that peasantry to someone else.
Demoman was unpopular for low to mid tours, but in the high tours group, he became the second most picked DPS class next to Soldier. To unleash Demoman's true potential, you're required to have a good understanding of how waves go. Without it, he'll just become a somewhat clunky Soldier.
Somewhat true. I mean, you have to know where the robots come from at some point. The more experience you have in the game mode with every class to properly prepare, but if you're doing with sticky traps and all that, then yeah, it's more important for a Demoman to know when comes what from what direction.
That explains why he has a low ping rate among low to mid skill levels.
I think the low tours are more afraid of messing up Ubermedics as well, so they tend to not just go Demoman. Maybe that's just an assumption, really, but they don't want to get blamed because they're too afraid to like make mistakes.
He also showed decreasing in ping rate as Pyro did, but he stayed above a 10% ping rate regardless of the tour count, unlike the Pyro. It's due to how solid his gameplay concept is, mowing down everything in sight. What's surprising was how prominent his ping rate was on the low tour side. He scored about 20%, which was an unrivaled amount. I guess Heavy's straightforward playstyle sold really well for the new players.
It's fair too, right? It's heavy. You have to do is shoot the gun at the robots. You can't really do much wrong, so it's kind of easy for low tours to pick up and just get a feel for everything. And then high tours tend to just don't go for heavy that much because there's better options out there and it's not the most exciting type of gameplay, so you know, graph checks out, I guess.
Engineer was one of the most prepared class regardless of the skill level. Understandable, new players love to play him because his sentry can farm you a bunch of free kills. But he also has a role as an anchor of the team due to his irreplaceable utilities, such as teleport, ammo supply, and sentry block. So mid to high tier players' ping rate staying nearly the same feels natural. Medic's case was similar to Engineer's, but the overall ping rate was smaller. I think it's because while Engineer's utilities are irreplaceable, Medic's ones are somewhat replaceable, mainly because of cantons. So unless you have a support-worthy pocket, there's not much reason to pick him. Maybe that can explain why his ping rate decreased slightly as the tour count rose. Sniper turns out to be the second most unpopular pick. Quite surprising to me, cause Sniper has arguably the highest peak potential among all the classes, and that's why he's my go-to pick when I need to carry the team. Maybe it's because trying to aim precisely felt too risky to try it for low tours, and too tiring for high tours. Anyway, I can safely say that he's very underrated.
I don't know, I expected the sniper pick rate to be higher on the high tool side here, but at the same time, 2 cities is kind of annoying in a way for sniper. In a lot of places. But yeah, low tours, low and mid tours, too difficult for them to understand sniper, or they just outright think it's bad class and they just don't go for it, so.
Spy. You thought Sniper's statistics were sad? Check this out. Practically speaking, nobody played Spy. Only 4 people gave him a try on the low tour side and nobody in the other groups. Sad to say, but it's pretty natural. It's way too situational class and requires you to have a decent understanding of MVM before even giving him a fair shot. No wonder why he's unpopular.
Yeah, this is just fucked up, okay? Spy pick rate here is just sadness altogether. Even on the high tour end, it's just sadness altogether. Understandable, but it's still sad. And yeah, it's much higher than Mecha and Expert because there's actual threats. Oh no, that's probably not the right way to put it, but there's more for Spy to do in a way. I don't know on how to put it. More dangerous giants with less money. Maybe something like that.
Let's check the class ping rate graph for each group before we move on to the next topic.
And obviously the low tours wouldn't pick Spy because majority of them thinks they're bad, and then randoms that do just want to try it.
I calculated this to prove my 2 hypotheses. 1. Support classes such as Scout, Engineer, and Medic would have higher AWP. Because their utilities are irreplaceable, I speculated that most people would stay with those classes as long as possible.
I really don't like the general description he gives Scout here. Money collecting, robot slowdown, health support. There's not even a mention of the fucking damage potential Scout can do. So, kind of misleading. Same with Engineer. There's so much more you can do with sentries. Dealing with tanks and shit, it's just as important. And that's why I would have liked to just know how he rated Engineer's performance on. Like, did he just need to have a dispenser slapped down 24/7, a sentry in like the block spots in case something gets passed, and have two-way when it was requested? Who the fuck knows? If that's all like you're basing your ratings on, these numbers don't really mean anything to me. Damage boost implies that Kritzkrieg is necessary, even though it's not. Not even medic is necessary. And frontline revive, I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean. Really, is he supposed to revive people that died? I mean, yeah, but not all the time. If it's just miles away. I'm not gonna run towards some guy in the middle of a fucking dangerous place to do it. So this you can't just like put a number on it and say you didn't do that, so he's bad. It always depends on
The
the
higher the skill
situation.
level is, DPS classes AWP will decrease in general. Unlike the support classes, DPS classes' jobs are similar, though I speculated that as the understanding of MVM grows, people would switch their classes more frequently to one that suits better with each raid. And here's the graph. It turns out that hypothesis 1 was only partially true. In the low tours group, there wasn't a significant difference between AWP of DPS and support classes. The mid tours group started showing slightly higher AWP for support classes, but with just a tiny margin. The difference finally became significant when we reached the high tours group. Maybe this means the lesser their experience is, players tend to stick more with the class they choose first, regardless of the situation. And hypothesis 2 seems to be true. We can spot that DPS classes AWP decreases as the tour count increases. The average of 4 most played DPS classes AWP shows that very clearly. In the high trust group, only Demoman scored AWP value over 3. I think it's because the Empire Escalation's prominent strategy revolves around the Demoman. With all of this, I think I confirmed this proposition. As the tour count grows, people tend to switch classes more flexibly according to the situation.
Yeah, as the tour count grows, people tend to abuse refunds more flexibly, maybe. Because if refund would still be limited, these numbers would just not reflect this. It's just, I don't know. The higher the tour count, the higher they switch classes. I mean, you can switch classes without refunding too and still perform reasonably well. But unfortunately, that's not the reality we live in. So refunding is frequently used and abused.
It might have surprised those who considered every high tours as meta slaves who are not allowing any alternative strategies. Before going in, let me recap what are good, so-so, and bad mean here. Good. Knows what to do and execute the job decently. So-so. Knows what to do roughly, execute the job, but somewhat poorly. Bad. Knows nearly nothing, execute the job poorly, or not even trying it. To be honest, all that I can say is this. The more they played, the better they performed. There's no
I mean, it goes without saying, really. The more you do something, the better you get at it. Technically, right? If I start out painting, and then continue painting for like 3 years, I'm probably gonna get better at painting. The same goes for playing MVM as well as all the other things in the world.
nothing much to say, especially for the high tour side. Except for the demo man, every class scored 100% good. What's up with the demo? There was a guy who played while he was drunk. That's it.
I don't know why he even included that in the statistics. He excluded the high tour resellers and shit. So why did he include a guy that was clearly not up to what he was supposed to do because he was drunk?
The mid-tour group was nearly the same. 5 out of 8 classes, excluding Spy because no one played him, were over 90% good. Though practically speaking, the result of the low tours group was the only meaningful one. Well then, let's check those out for each class one by one, like we did with the ping rate. Scout showed good performance in about 79% of the cases. It's a surprising result considering that Scout had the 4th lowest ping rate, which was 7.7%. Guess this implies that people who know how to play him picked him in the most case.
The how to play Scout is the real crux here. Because how do you play Scout? Based on your rules, it's just milking and fucking collecting the money. So, on a low tool scale, yeah. I mean, that they're good at that, because it's fucking easy to do. Not a big surprise, is there?
Soldier's overall performance wasn't excellent. Only 46% of the players were good, 34% were so-so, and 20% were bad.
I mean, we don't know what he bases this on. Does he have to like have rocket specialists like I said before? What's the good for soldier here?
The problem was that they kept on shooting when they should.
Oh my dear!
Repeatedly.
Of course.
Misfire
Shooting
rocket had
pyros. with rockets. I mean, come on, if you should expect it, to be honest.
Has the potential to ruin the game plan for others, so no wonder why many players got recorded as bad. However, Pyro showed worse results than the Soldier. Only 30% of the players were good, 35% were so-so, and 35% were bad. So, by the chart, if you meet a random Pyro with a low tour count, there's only 30% chance of them being good. Bad low tour Pyro stereotype was not an outcome of squeakings of toxic high tours in their period. They were that bad. It all comes down to the fact that Pyro's troll potential is the highest among all the classes. Short range the primary, forcing you to get into close quarters, which is dangerous, spammable knockback, which can easily disrupt teammates' gameplay, overpowered but single time use weapon requires you to know when to hold. With the control of an ignorant player, Pyro can become a self-aware nuclear bomb for your team. No wonder why Pyro had the second highest bad percentage among all the classes. No, wait.
Not surprising. You know, Pyro players that don't know what they're doing, then just detriment to the team is kind of normal. Even with the gas passer equipped, we've seen that before when our gas man just couldn't deal with tanks at all on his own. Yeah, kinda true. The knockback, I don't think we need to talk about the air blast spam is going on everywhere.
Second highest? Yes, surprisingly, the worst performed class for the low tours group wasn't the Pyro. It was the Demo Man. Only 10% of the people were good, 37% were so-so, and a whopping 53% got recorded as bad. How this is even possible when the Demo Man has little to no troll potential compared to Pyro?
I know what little to no throw potential means, but there's tons of fucking Uber medics and tons of stuff that Devilman needs to technically deal with and remember. So I don't know why he's so surprised about these numbers of bad performing low tours in a class that needs to deal with so many things at the same time and need to know the wave layout as well. Like, it kind of checks out in my eyes.
I assume that it's mainly because of the alternatives. Don't take me wrong, Demoman's peak potential is crazy, but he requires you to memorize the mission to unleash it. If you're a new player, why would you play him then? When there are not one, not two, but three much easier to use alternative DPS classes. Because of that, new players rarely pick the Demoman in the first place. We can confirm it by looking at his ping rate again. 6.8%, third lowest. Consider that second and first were Sniper and Spy. So, practically speaking, he was the lowest. That means what's left on the chart was clueless players playing him without knowing what to do, ultimately making Demoman the highest bad percentage recorded class. Also,
actually, I don't know about this.
Ultimately making Demoman the
It looks like the gate's actually still not closed over there, so he's waiting for something to come out. So, not really a reason to freak out about Stinky still being there and the Demoman watching that, depending on what's coming out. Wave 2 at that stage, probably nothing important, but
percentage recorded class. Also, the same don't want to try out Demoman mindset showed in the mid-trust group. Lowest ping rate and high bad record percentage. The Demoman was the only class that scored under 80% good in the mid-trust group. And remember that I said every class scored 100% good in the high trust group? Except for the Demoman because of that one drunken guy? So, according to the chart, Demoman was the worst performed class regardless of the skill level.
Demoman worst class confirmed. Never pick Demoman again. Okay, thank you. That probably requires the most skills since you have to burn the missions into your grey matter to know where and when to plant traps. True. Who would be out of the mind to do that? Nobody.
Oh god, I'm sorry, Demo. Here, you could use some drink.
Bloody hell!
Heavy was overall decent. 57% recorded good performance, 36% were so-so, and only 7% got recorded as bad.
I assume he based his rating on like using knockback, because otherwise I don't know heavy performance, maybe dying a lot, or something like that. Not blocking, maybe. We don't know because he never explained it.
Understandable result because it's hard not to be helpful as Heavy in MVM. Heavy is not very effective in long range, so he's unlikely to pop the Uber medics. Also, he's not a projectile class, so teammates are safe from possible reflected projectiles. The only way he can throw is upgrading an obscure knockback range upgrade that has an unintuitive way to activate that needs you to charge the gauge by dealing the damage before using it, and spam it. Compare that with this fucking thing. No wonder why Heavy recorded the second lowest bad percentage next to Scout. Surprisingly low amount, considering that Heavy had about 2.6 times bigger ping rate than the Scout. Engineer was quite similar to the Heavy. 53% good, 33% so-so, 14% bad. As long as you're placing the buildings in the correct positions, Engineer pick is hard not to be helpful too. But many new players tend to play as a turtle in a shell, as they did in Casual. Guess that explains the higher bad percentage compared to the Heavy. Medic was somewhat extreme version of the Heavy, I'd say. It showed 70% good, 18% so-so, and 12% bad. Medic is also a class that hard not to be helpful, but it seems that how to pop the shield wasn't very intuitive
when you know
for
how
new
to
players.
use it.
For those who don't know, the mouse wheel click is the default setting. You can also
He was in a Gamers with Freak Show. Ah, he's blessed.
change it by editing the bind on a special attack. Anyway, higher good percentage ratio, but the bad side stayed similar to the Engineer. Sniper showed 42% good, 32% so-so, and 26% bad. But the sample size was too small to have a meaningful analysis. The ping rate in the Road Tours group was 2.8%, so. However, it was interesting that it showed similar results as the Soldier, but with the opposite reason. Soldier's bad performance resulted when he hit the things that he wasn't supposed to touch, but the Sniper's bad performance resulted when he failed to hit the things that he needed to clear. Skill issue at its finest. Spy had little to no samples, so I'll dismiss it. Seriously, what can I do with the recording of 4 men playing him in a total of 6 waves? And do you see that one wave recorded as good? That was the last wave spy switch. So practically speaking, 100% of them were bad. All that I can say is that he's a trap for new players. Here's the performance graph for each tour count again. Let's take a look before we move on to the next one.
Again, I don't know what he bases this on, high to bad performance ratio, depending on what you call bad or good in a game. This probably changes person to person. So, cool numbers, but we don't know the reasons behind them.
You might wonder why there are additional comments under the Pyros, with gas and no gas. Simply because I really wanted to bust this widely spread myth among the high tours, whether they are toxic or not. Are all gas passers using Pyros dumb? So I tracked each of Pyro secondary and sorted them into 3 groups, with gas, no gas, question mark. The question mark means they haven't shown what secondary they were using. How that's even possible, you ask? Heavenly Hostility, Final Wave. This wave is unique. The main robots you need to defeat for this wave are 3 tanks. Only 3 tanks. And the best tank buster class is a Flog Pyro. Yeah, of course this happens. It's impossible to track each man when everyone's playing the same class, so I'll attach another version of Pyro statistics excluding Heavenly Hostility Final Wave Pyro switchers, to make the statistics more accurate. Let's start by checking the high tours Pyro statistics. Only 6 players played in a total of 9 waves, and all of them were good. Nothing was changed when I exclude Heavenly Hostility Last Wave Pyro switchers too. The only conclusion I can come up with this result is this: high tours doesn't give a shit about the Pyro. Almost every Pyro player in mid tours used the gas passer, nearly 76%. It gets much higher when we exclude the Heavenly Hostility Final Wave Pyro switchers from the data, 91%. Anyway, over 80% performed good. Now here's the main part. In the low tours group, 43 players played 144 waves, and 75% of the cases, they equipped the gas. Only 19% had no gas. After excluding Heavenly Hostility Final Wave Pyro switchers, the number became 79% and 20%. Gasmaster Pyro showed only 22.1% goon record ratio, while bad one was 32.6%.
Now this is the real funny. So you're telling me the low tools with the gas perform overall pretty badly. Wow. Shocking. Truly shocking, you know. That revelation is just blowing my mind, to be honest.
Does this mean that the myth was true? No. The problem wasn't the gas passer. I mentioned earlier, Pyro becomes a self-aware nuclear bomb if the pilot isn't right. And the gas passer, yes, can be mildly irritating to play with its user, but we can't deny that it redeemed many less experienced Pyro's gameplays. Then, what will happen if we remove the gas passer from those players' hand? They became a fucking self-aware Tsar Bomba! 57.6% bad! So, the truth is, the every gas passer Pyros are dumb myth was aiming at the wrong point. Not the gas, but the Pyro itself was the main problem.
Okay, now this is the dumbest statement, okay? Not gas is the problem, but Pyro is the problem, right? If you don't have gas as Pyro, you're a problem, is basically what he's saying here. And that's just not fucking cool at all. Not cool at all. The problem is not gas or Pyro. And he said it before this as well. The problem is the fucking pilot of the class, you know, the player. And if he doesn't know how to play the class without the gas, then you can consider them to be fucking bad. Or worse at it, because Pyro is most likely a harder class to play than all the other classes. Like he said, it's close range. So I don't know why he just shits on the class itself when it's obviously harder to play for newer players. When they don't have the magical secondary that just nukes everything away. So this is just crap.
Short-ranged gun, pitiable DPS, extremely situational minor upside traded with the highest throw potential. Gas Passer was just a popular secondary weapon among the Pyro players. Maybe the Gas Passer's existence is why there are so many low tours selecting the Pyro, so I can't say that the bad reputation of the Gas Passer...
Yeah, there's so many low tours who like the Pyro because it's easy to do shit with a weapon that just nukes everything from across the map. Consider that a fact. You know, it's easy to do well with a class that would be performing poorly for them.
100% framed, but with the grab, I can at least confirm
Without
that
the
the
gas?
gas is not the cause of all the Pyro problems in MVM. And as
No, it's not the cause. The cause is the player. It's just a fucking what do you call it? A band-aid fix, I guess, in a way, to make bad Pyro players better.
long as Pyro's inherent limitations stay unchanged, I don't think average low tour Pyro's bad performance will ever improve. That's my final thought on this.
The problem with the gas is like as soon as it gets taken away or gets nerfed on like community missions and shit, people just don't know what to do. They legitimately don't know what to do. The gas is gone, the air blast power is gone, and they're just like, this is bullshit. Or they just switch class because how else are you supposed to play Pyro? So they have this weapon that makes them better at Pyro, but doesn't actually teach them anything about how to play Pyro properly. So yeah, it helps them, but in the long run, they don't learn anything.
The higher the tour count goes, the population of the player decreases, roughly following an inverse proportion pattern. But the higher the tour count is, the more games they play per man. It ultimately made the two graphs show a massive discrepancy. Average waves played, AWP, were similar across all tour count groups. There's a possibility that high tours has a higher chance of living in mid-game, but further research is required to confirm that. Low tours prefer to pick a class with a straightforward playstyle, such as a heavy, engineer, and medic. Mid tours prefer to pick a more versatile and crucial class than the low tours, such as a soldier, scout, and engineer. High tours showed nearly the same tendency as the mid tours, but the demo mapping rate increased significantly. It clearly shows that their understanding level of MVM is much higher. Sniper and Spy were two classes with the least amount of occurrence, due to many factors such as their high skill floor, required situational conditions, and foreign playstyle. People just haven't given them any love. It's a shame, considering that their peak potential is astonishing. As the tour count grew, AWP of support classes increased but decreased for DPS classes. It implies that the higher the player's skill level is, the more likely they'll switch the class according to the situation. Low tour's performance graph for each class showed that the lesser the class's throw potential, the better overall performance appears. Classes with little to no throw potential, such as Heavy, Engineer, and Medic showed positive results. On the other hand, Soldier and Pyro showed vice versa. Scout showed a different tendency, low ping rate but highest good record ratio. Implies that mostly the people who understand the role of the Scout played him. Demoman was the most interesting one. Due to his high skill floor, he recorded the lowest ping rate, which implies that players opted to play other options rather than him. This negatively impacted Demoman's record and ultimately made him the worst performing class on the chart. Not only on the low tours group, but also on the mid tours, and even on the high tours due to one guy who was drunk while playing him.
Just exclude him?
You are the worst performing class regardless of the skill level.
Swear to God, I'm just gonna go around and like shout it from the rooftops that Demo is the worst performing class in MVM. And then I'll link them this video.
Lastly, the widespread belief among the high tours, gas passer pyros are bad, turned out to be mostly false. Usage of the gas had no negative relationship with each pyro's performance, more like positive as we've seen on the chart. So, now I think it's time to fix the prejudice. Gas passer using pyro isn't a problem. Pyro itself is.
I'm fine.
You might ask, so what? What's the point of this video? Aren't you promoting the hatred against the low tours by showing how bad they are? Isn't this video just propaganda for gaslighting the innocent new players? No, it's just statistics, consisting of fair and neutral information, the numbers. The statistic can be used for malicious intents like hatred, but also it can be a concrete foundation for wholesome movements. Statistics is a double-edged sword. It's all about which way you swing it. So, I'll let you decide how to interpret and what to do with these results. I hope this video helped people to grow their understanding of the MVM player base, such as why low tours prefer certain classes and playstyles, and why high tours dislike certain types of teammates. Because I believe that the more people know about the topic, the more
I don't know what the hell is going on in that game, but this is just ridiculous.
We have seen too many worthless arguments between high and low tours, ultimately leaving nothing but hatred aimed at each other. Resolving that one day is my goal, so I hope this video can be the first step toward it. I mean, MVM is a co-op game mode for entertainment. Hating others in it is meaningless, whether you're low or high tour. Just
probably.
Let's be altruistic a bit more. That's all that I hope.
Pop-up has accepted
course,
pop-up
these
something special for
statistics are
someone
perfect.
special.
There was one use factor that might have diluted the accuracy of it. The presence of me, myself. I showed up on every game listed on this chart. My high tour count and staying with the team behavior might significantly affect the people I met. Maybe those high tours I met were toxic, but stayed mute because I had a higher tour number. And maybe some low tour players opted to yell the crucial low to me instead of giving themselves a shot. So feel free to share your thoughts and criticize this video in the comment section. I'll also share my statistics spreadsheet with you in the description. Whether trying to produce statistics by yourself with the format or playing with my recordings, I look forward to you guys bringing me more fascinating results. Alright, that's it for today's video. If you want to talk with me and other people about this or other topics, consider joining my Discord server. The link is in the description. I occasionally stream on Twitch, so consider following me there too. Anyway, like always, thank you all for watching my video. See you next time, folks.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know how to fucking take this, but did you ever think about low tools being bad at the game because they don't play a lot and they don't know a lot about the game? It's crazy, huh? Would you have ever considered that?